Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to have you all here on today's virtual training on developing partnerships to expand outreach. This is Jenny Huang. I am the Outreach Associate for the Get It Back campaign. So for those of you who may not know, the Get It Back campaign is a national effort to promote the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit. We work with many community organizations, advocacy groups, and other orgs to connect workers with tax credits and free tax filing. We provide outreach tools, trainings like these, and resources to help you in your work. You can visit our website, eitcoutreach.org, for more information and resources. Thank you again so much for joining. Today's webinar is a part of our virtual training series that features the expertise of campaign partners in the field. We focus on very specific outreach strategies and skills that you can apply to your work. In the past, we've held trainings on how to recruit and retain tax volunteers, how to use texting in outreach, and how to include FAFSA help at your tax site. You can find these past trainings and other resources on our blog. If there's any topic you'd like to learn more about, please feel free to let us know in the survey you'll be redirected to after the training is over. So before we get started, we wanted to do a couple of quick polls to see what kinds of partnerships you are already all engaged in. So we are about to launch the first poll now. So the first poll question is, who do you currently partner with? Select all that apply. So just click which one applies to you. We'll give it another few seconds before we close the poll. All right, so it looks like about 61% of you partner with universities, half, 48%, partner with banks, and half, 52%, partner with businesses. 18% of you who are on the line now do not partner with any organizations currently. Okay, we have one more question before we get started. So what challenges have you experienced while developing partnerships? Select all that apply. So A, you are unable to identify the right contact. B, difficulty demonstrating relevance. Or C, lack of support from leadership. We'll give you a few more moments before we close the poll. All right, so it looks like 87% of you were unable to identify the right contact. Okay. 37% had difficulty demonstrating relevance, and 40% had a lack of support from leadership. Got it. Well, hopefully that will help our presenters as they as they go through their material to know what kind of challenges you all have been facing. All right, well, thank you all so much for answering our questions. With that, I will turn it to Jane, who will introduce today's speakers and the training.
Hi, thanks again for joining. Partnerships are a key component of successful VITA and tax credit outreach efforts. Many of you have shared with us that forming meaningful partnerships have been a challenge. We put together this training because establishing and cultivating partnerships can transform your work. The value of partnerships cannot be overstated. 3 benefits are that they, 1, increase your reach and exposure by increasing credibility and by providing an avenue to new audiences through natural cross-promotion. 2, they expand available resources by increasing range of services without increasing your budget and by filling gaps in knowledge, capacity, or skills. 3, they spark creativity and new ideas. Partners may offer a new perspective or expertise. This is especially useful when addressing challenges. Today, our presenters will discuss their experiences initiating and maintaining relationships with universities, businesses, and banks. They will share effective communication strategies, guidelines for messaging, and tips for establishing mutually beneficial partnerships. Afterward, you will have an opportunity to ask them questions. Now I'll say a little bit about our speakers. First, we'll hear from Stephen Black. Stephen founded Impact Alabama, a student service initiative in 2004, and currently serves as its president and chairman of the board. The organization became Impact America in 2014 and currently operates in Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Florida. Impact America is an award-winning nonprofit that has provided more than 8,000 college students the opportunity to participate in structured service projects that promote learning and leadership development. In 2008, Stephen received the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Community Health Leaders Award. He holds a bachelor's degree from University of Pennsylvania and a Juris Doctorate from Yale Law School. Next, we'll hear from Brenda Brown. At the heart of West Michigan United Way, Brenda is the program manager for the Kent County Tax Credit Coalition. In this role, Brenda develops VITA sites, recruits volunteers, and informs the community about VITA services and tax credits. She serves on several committees in the Grand Rapids area, including West Michigan Leadership Collaborative. Whether advocating for senior citizens, increasing social service awareness, or bridging the gaps between economic classes, Brenda is on a mission to improve the quality of life in her community. Brenda is a Community Pillar Legacy Awardee and an H.C. Tolliver Religious Giants Awardee. Finally, we'll hear from Logan Jones. Logan is a navigator at Work-Life Partnership, where he helps workers overcome barriers to getting to work, staying at work, and being productive in the workplace. Logan brings a keen interest in engaging with and better understanding those with different experiences, and helping them create a path out of poverty. He logged almost 3,000 hours of service with AmeriCorps and was the recipient of the Next Gen Leadership Award from the Kellogg Foundation. Logan also served the United Way in Colorado and Kansas. Logan holds a bachelor's degree in Family Studies and Human Services from Kansas State University. And now we'll hear from Stephen.
All right. I think in thinking about what is the most helpful to say in 12 minutes without knowing everything about the audience, it's hard to not be able to make eye contact with you all. But I think what I've been asked to cover is the most helpful narrative to use in engaging students at tax sites. In other words, there are a lot of challenges to running VITA sites, and sometimes there are VITA sites that have capacity and need to put a lot more time into attracting clients and in spreading the word to communities in a way that they understand it's a legitimate service, and just because it's free doesn't mean it's bad, and that there's not an angle to it. There are a lot of VITA sites around the country that in pretty short order have a lot of people waiting, and they end up overburdened by the number of taxpayers and a lack of volunteers. And our model is a college student model, and there's nothing revolutionary about utilizing college students. Most VITA sites have some type of partnership. Most United Ways have some type of partnership with universities. There are about 1,200 colleges and universities around the country, and normally their participation in the story of VITA is a small group of accounting students, on average less than 10 from a campus, who on average help less than 100 families during tax season. And our approach is just to sort of revolutionize that story. This, in our world, this has nothing to do with accounting students trying to bolster their resumes. This has nothing to do with helping them prepare for a profession in accounting. This has to do with a conversation across campuses, across all disciplines, about the injustice of the commercial tax preparation industry. And regardless of students' interest, one nice thing about the millennial generation is, statistically speaking, they're the most voluntaristic young generation we've ever produced. And we've been measuring since before World War II. They're very charitably minded. They're very voluntaristic in nature. The challenge is it's a passion-led generation. In other words, mostly they choose to do things they're the most passionate about. There's nothing really wrong with that, but when a young person seeking to engage and volunteer is only focused on what they're personally most passionate about, there are a lot of issues in our country and in communities that get left out because they don't have the same sort of sex appeal or immediate gratification sort of passion kind of soundbite to them. And tax preparation is one of those. In our world, in the South, rather than try to make tax preparation sound sexy, we sort of take a different approach. We start with the university president, the provost. We explain that our staff, made up mostly of AmeriCorps members, can come to their campus and recruit and train students, and then we'll supervise them at the tax sites. But we get in front of large groups of students by the hundreds, and rather than try to sugarcoat the experience, we take the opposite approach and just say, if you're passionate about children, I think that's great. You can go volunteer at a school. If you're passionate about senior citizens, I know your university has connections to senior centers. If you're passionate about homelessness, whatever the issue. But during January and February and March, we don't really care what you're passionate about. This is not just about you. This is about the only significant federal tax policy that continues to enjoy bipartisan support, which is the Earned Income Tax Credit. It's helpful in our world to explain that it grew dramatically under Reagan, it grew dramatically under Bill Clinton. There's nothing ideological about this. It leaves a debate about entitlement programs aside and focuses on families living at or near the poverty line. You have to have a paycheck to qualify. Most of it, as you all know, goes to families with children. And it's the single largest anti-poverty federally supported program in the country, outside of recessions. In the middle of a recession, food stamps surpass it. But in most years, this is the largest commitment the country makes. And the problem is, the questions are confusing, they're intimidating, and like wealthier families, low-income families would appreciate someone helping them through to make sure they get it right. But unlike wealthy families, low-income families regularly do not have access to accountants. CPAs, in fact, would think themselves as unethical to charge a family to help with a tax return that doesn't even require itemization, which I understand, but the problem is that's left a vacuum that has been filled over the last 20 years by a predatory, mean-spirited industry that on average this year is charging $400 a family. Most of the returns have no itemization and take less than 30 minutes. That's a huge amount of money to throw away for me in an afternoon. If you're making $21,000 a year working at Walmart raising a kid, that's an immoral amount of money to have to spend. And in every state but 5, there's no oversight over this industry. There's no training requirements. So that's sort of the way we build the story on campuses. And we reach out to English majors and philosophy majors and all of them and say, you don't have to love math. You don't have to care about accounting. This is about putting your own interests aside for 3 months and go through the basic training, get certified, and come help families in your area secure a tax credit, which we've all invested in, to keep them from having to spend $400 to secure a benefit that they've earned. And that has a powerful result. In every campus we're on, we end up in a position of literally having to turn away students. We have the capacity right now. We did 9,000 families across Alabama. There are a lot of VITA sites around the country in bigger cities that can do 9,000 in a city. But in a rural state like Alabama, that's a considerable effort over 23 sites. We had 600 students certified just in the state of Alabama this year. And we probably had 700 more that we turned away. The turning away ends up actually being helpful. If you sort of want to come onto a campus to suggest that this is a hard, difficult, demanding, high-end, aspirational activity, and just a limited number of students can participate, and we put it usually at 30 at a campus to start out, or 50. And the second part of how to make this work is I suppose the next most helpful question is, well, how do we do that? How do we go to campuses and get 50 students? Our version of the answer to that is AmeriCorps. There is a large group of recent college graduates who are trained over 200 hours before tax season. And they help us recruit on campuses. We speak in classes, we speak to clubs, I speak to convocations, and we end up picking 30 to 50 and put them through the training and then oversee them at the sites. And I think the most important sort of next step in that is, and for those on this call who operate and know about VITA sites, even if you have a bunch of basic volunteers, without people that are trained to quality review, it almost sort of zeroes out your efficiency. And that requires more training and a higher level certification. In our case, we start with the students who went through the year of basic. And we usually take like the best 50% of them, the 50% that engage the most, that learn the fastest, that were the most mature. And they all get a personalized email after tax season, congratulating them on their effort. And rather than begging them to come back next year for more training, we put it in other terms. We say, congratulations for the leadership you've shown, for your exemplary commitment to the tax site and the maturity and expertise you've shown. I want to congratulate you. You've been selected for a campus fellowship, which means you'll get 12 hours of additional training next fall. You'll be trained at a higher level, and we'll need you this number of hours each week for 8 weeks. And sort of as opposed to making it something we're just hoping students will sign up for, we make it sort of a position of honor to have a more of a leadership role at the site. I think there's still about 15% of VITA sites around the country that are by appointment only. That's been really helpful for us in managing the students well. A lot of sites use students and don't have a great experience, and you get a lot of no-shows. I think the reason we end up so successful with students is most of them are doing it as part of courses. We partner with faculty and help create courses about poverty in America. We help them with the curriculum. We help sort of get them on the books, and they're usually an elective, and then we help advertise them around the campus. And for students that are just doing it on a volunteer basis, we're just constantly following up with them. And we have a software that we've designed for volunteer management, and we're able to dramatically reduce the number of no-shows and really get them to feel like they're part of an important team that they've committed to. And we end up with a huge capacity. Unfortunately for us, our biggest challenge is just driving more and more taxpayers to the sites to keep the hundreds and hundreds of college students that we have trained and certified busy.
All right, thank you so much, Stephen. If you have any questions for any of the speakers, please type them into the box and then we'll answer them at the end. Brenda, if you'd like to get started on your portion of the presentation.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be asked to do this. I'm going to be talking about the VITA program and banking partnerships, what I really like to call relationships. We got started 14 years ago with our relationships with the banks through a collaborative with our then Mayor Hartwell at the time, and the Delta Strategy nonprofit executive director of Penny Petzl. And they invited all of the banks to a lunch meeting. At the meeting, they had some CEOs or presidents as well as CRA representatives. And they talked about the Community Reinvestment Act benefits of this program, how this program would help them with their CRA credits and FDIC credits. And because the program is a give back for low to moderate income families. And from there, the relationship took off. They actually helped with the funding of the program initially because it was a grassroots program. So they helped with funding. They helped with volunteers as well, and that's later on in my presentation. We share with them the benefits of the program, that they would be able to use their employees as volunteers, in turn giving them another skill, because as you all know, tax preparing is a skill. And this way they would give them a skill, and it doesn't cost them anything initially. After that, we talked about them giving us funding to ensure that the program continued on. We left that area of the conversation and went into discussing another benefit for them, and that would be they would have access to the unbanked as well as the underbanked, because they could collaborate with us and offer asset building workshops. Now, most people know it as financial literacy workshops. However, I don't like to make people feel as if they're literate with their finances, so we selected other wording. And so we do events like Show Me the Money Day, and that's where the bank CRA representatives come in and they offer the asset building workshops, such as budgeting. You know, how are we going to get started with credit? If your credit is poor, how do you fix your credit? What is a credit score? And they have the opportunity to do that. We do, and in turn, of course, for the unbanked or underbanked, they teach them about their various products. We also do a Minding Your Money, which is something quite similar to Show Me the Money Day. It isn't as intense. Show Me the Money Day is almost a full day experience. Minding Your Money is a quick 2-hour piece, and it is very specific for a smaller group of tax clients, I should say, or taxpayers. After that, and in that one, we also offer, life lessons like life insurance, because we find that so many of our taxpayers, if life happens, they're not prepared. So how am I able to afford that benefit for my family, yet meet my basic needs? And so that's a part of the asset building program that the banks offer to our unbanked and underbanked. We also have them doing it in school bank. They take the banks to the children and teach the children the principles of banking and money management. One of the other things that we've done with one of our banks is we have the Fifth Third e-bus come to town. And on that bus, we actually prepare taxes on the bus during the end of tax season. This helps with that late taxpayer collaboration piece because, most sites are filled at the end. We're by appointments also, so most sites are filled the first 2 weeks in April, the last of tax season, and so the e-bus helps us to meet those needs. And so we do all that, we did all of that, and so the benefits, and they bought in, and they continue to buy in year after year. And of course, I keep them updated on what's going on all the time. And then we need to, after you've developed that relationship, you need to maintain the relationship. So you invite the banks or the financial institutions to come to your coalition table, share your vision and the benefits of having a voice at the table. At the table, of course, you get to say what workshops are presented to the community, how many volunteers are needed, where the sites should be. So we give them, I guess I could say, a little power within the coalition. And that always feels good. We keep them updated. I keep them updated on events, reports of volunteer needs. If anything exciting happens, I send out an email. If we have a report, if I have to generate a report for one funder, I share it with all of the banks. If I have volunteer needs, I let them know right away. Look, I need a volunteer for the e-bus. Can you send me 4? We'll make sure they're trained. Just send them to us. And then at the end of the season, I send a report to all of the CRA representatives that they can in turn share with their presidents or their powers that be, and with, of course, FDIC. I email them a lot of times just to say, hello, I'm thinking of you. Let's do lunch. I genuinely take an interest in them. And through that, of course, I'm invited to a lot of their own personal events and make sure that I'm available and that I'm personable. I get to know them. I know what works, what doesn't work in their life. And that's extremely important when you're developing a relationship with funders, with any funders, and in this particular case, with the banks. And then I make sure that we have a system of support that works for our group. I'm open to doing things out of the box. So that means that if I have to train on Saturdays instead of Mondays through Fridays, then I will make sure that we train the bank employees on Saturdays, 9 to 5, so that they can make sure that they get all the trainings that they need and the certification. I'm sorry, I should have said next slide. And then I try to be flexible with the volunteer training. And there have been times that I've had to take training on site to ensure that their volunteers are trained. So being flexible, think out the box, and know how to work with them, address the challenges. Now, there have been challenges with funding. So after we got out of the grassroots period, they were like, "Oh, you all are on your feet. We're going to go on to something else now." So then I was like, "Okay, well, can you be sponsor for our volunteer celebration?" I said, here, we have various sponsorships. I need you to take one of these. And that worked for them. They truly enjoyed that. And then in that sponsorship, of course, their logos are all over the place on the tents and on the posters. And the biggest challenge has been training. And that is getting someone to train them, to train on Saturdays, or actually going into the banks to train them. But the biggest thing is being flexible in it all and being personable. It will work for you. I promise you it will.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for that. We did have a question. What does CRA stand for? CRA stands for the Community Reinvestment Act. It basically encourages banks to invest in their local communities. They get scored for how much they are investing in their community. So by working with VITA partnerships, they can bring that support into their neighborhoods. Brenda, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with the CRA?
For CRA, I want to say that there was an email that went out a few years ago from the Office of the FDIC encouraging the banks to participate in the VITA program because FDIC strongly supports this program. And so, and please, whatever you do, don't say, I need you to support this program because you need your FDIC score to go up or your FDIC credits. Just share with them the value, like Stephen was saying, to the community that it adds, and that it does service the low to moderate income population, which in all actuality the banks are concerned about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. And now we are going to turn to Logan, who will be talking about partnering with the business community.
So hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. As said before, my name is Logan Jones with Work-Life Partnership. This was my 4th season with VITA, and I started in 2011 down in Wichita, Kansas. And my employer, Work-Life Partnership, just to kind of give us a quick intro, is a nonprofit that goes directly onto the work site where we offer employee retention services for the employer members. So that kind of looks like an in-house EAP service. Employees will meet with us if they're running behind on their rent, running behind on utility bills, wanting to go back to school to get a GED so they can upskill, get into a higher paid position at the workforce. Sometimes they just kind of want to come in, get something off their chest, find food banks. It can be a wide range of services that they come to see us with. But a big part of what we've been focusing on is financial health. And so I brought my background with VITA here, and we've been integrating that into our services. Can I get next slide, please?
Logan, you should have control of the presentation too. Can you see if you can click through?
I have been, but it's not going for me. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Perfect.
So another thing that we do is we offer data, aggregate data to our employer members so they can see kind of what's going on. And again, one of the reasons that we're there in the first place is that there's a high cost of turnover for our employees and our employer members. And I also have below down the wages that we have found that an adult with a preschooler would need to be self-sufficient in 3 of the counties in Colorado. And for a lot of our folks, they are not paid at that wage rate. So we need some services in order to offset that. So we provide this information to the employer and let them know that, you know, here's how many employees we have seen, here's how much retention we're able to do for you. But we also use this data to encourage them that if your employees are falling below that self-sufficiency wage, here's some things that you can be doing, services, possibly pay increases, increasing the benefits in order to retain that workforce. So for VITA itself, I'm sorry about that. Our partners, we're broken up into Denver and then also in Larimer County, which is about an hour north of Denver. Down south, we have Denver Asset Building Coalition. They are one of the largest providers down there. They mostly operate walk-in clinics throughout the metro area. Our work then is to take the tax preparation service that they offer directly onto the employer work sites. So we schedule 2 visits, one in February, one in March. We go there, and for Denver, we offer just what we call traditional site preparation. The people call in ahead of time. We use a sign-up Genius to keep track of appointments. They meet with the tax preparer right then and there. It gets prepped. It gets QR'd. We print off the copy. They're done and off the way they go. Over in Larimer County, we did kind of a mix. Mostly we did the traditional site visits. Again, each employer got one in February and March. But then we also utilize what we call the valet service. So say an employee can't make it to one of those events, they can call me and schedule an appointment where we would meet for just a quick intake. I gather up the documents, and then I would go off-site to have the return prepared, QR'd, and then I would either return to wherever the employee was working or have them come to one of our office sites and hand off the return to them. We started in 2014, and I mean, up north, I think we had like 7 employees that year. Last year, we had a little bit more traction both in the south and the north. And then for this year, the word of mouth has really been getting around for us. And we saw large increases this year, 63% in Denver and 119 down south, or excuse me, up north. Mostly the workforce is largely myself. I do it in both locations. And then we also have some additional staff members helping out down south. Make Change NoCo up in Larimer County is pretty established, and they had about 3 volunteers that were always accompanying me. And they also run a year-long tax site, so I can always draw them if, say like I actually got contacted yesterday from an employee who hadn't done their taxes and missed us. We're going to be able to help them out next week. So how do you actually go about and get the businesses on board? Well, a large part of that is kind of already built in with WorkLife Services. We go in and we sell general navigation services through WorkLife. A lot of times that's working with already established employer members. Who do you work with? Who are even competitors? Who do you sit on coalitions with? We also like to go to health and wellness fairs, benefits fairs. If we're trying to find like completely new members, we utilize our relationships with our board members. So like kind of what Brenda was saying, we do have a board member who is part of a credit union. And so she works with various businesses, you know, that's for-profit business with some of them, and she outreaches to them and offers our services, tells them about what we do. And then the next step, my program director, executive director will meet with them, and VITA comes up pretty frequently. And VITA largely sells itself. Whenever you talk about taxes, you know, rich or poor, everybody has to file a tax return. So business members, business owners, that really resonates with them because they have to do it themselves. So it's really great at selling itself. And again, if you are just starting out completely from scratch, I would go ahead and contact places like United Way, visiting their board members. You know, a lot of their work is to try to get people up on financial self-sustainability. So there's going to be good contacts there to get you some business advocates. Another way to sell this is just hitting on the strengths for both parties, both you yourself as VITA and then also the employees. For a lot of this area anyway, most of the tax clinics operate on walk-ins, and for our working class population, they can't easily access that. A lot of them here run from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. However, we're directly on site. You can just walk down the hallway to the tax preparation site, and that's where we are. And the more established you get, I mean, the easier it is. For some people, like they can't come away from their desk, but I mean, I've known them now for several years. I can just walk on over, gather up the paperwork that I need, walk back down to the preparation site, do the return, bring it back to their desk. Pretty easy. Word of mouth advertising is extremely strong with this one. For one of my sites, I had about 12 hours to go before we were going to show up, and I only had 2 people signed up. Let the supervisor know. She shot off an email, and within 1 hour, that spot was completely filled up. And then they definitely remember and they mark this on their calendar, and they try to contact you as soon as they are able, and they bring their family members, they bring their coworkers. Once you get them in there, they're going to be doing most of the legwork for you in terms of advertising. We do use appointment-based. That is something that we had done in Kansas, and we did have about 50% no-show rate for the entire time that we did that. With the employer members, it's much lower in February. Once you get later into March, and if you kind of creep into April, that 50% sort of comes back, especially if it's a new site. But the more buy-in you have with the employers, they fill up better. And we have generally restricted ourselves to trying to end about mid-March. Another benefit of the Sign Up Genius is that you can kind of do some pre-intake with people. So when they do sign up, I get a notification. Here's the site and the time that they had signed up for. I give them a call, remind them to come. Here's where it's at. Here's what parking looks like. By the way, bring your social security card, bring all these other documents. Some of the challenges though, I want to highlight is, and again, especially if this is a new business coming aboard, your definition of a good room for tax preparation and theirs are often very different. For them, if 3 people can sit at a table, that's great. So get the biggest room that you can, but definitely get there ahead of time and actually go physically see the room, or have them snap pictures of it and send it to you. Definitely need that. Another ongoing challenge is, even with the Sign Up Genius ahead of time, employees still forget their social security numbers and direct deposit info. This is somewhat mitigated though by the fact that you are often right next to the HR office, and they keep copies of those cards and also the direct deposit information. So I can really only think of a handful of times where someone had forgot that information and we weren't able to do the return that day. They just waltz right on down to HR. Another big thing to watch out for is people very frequently show up 30 minutes early to their appointments, which can kind of get you log jammed pretty quick. Opportunities though for us, again, I said for HR and supervisor buy-in leads to some of the best advertising, especially if you do their returns. One of our Denver employees, I did the actual HR director's return last year, and they were one of the quickest at filling up, and I never had any free spots with that employer because the supervisor is selling the product basically to them. We are also going to be doing some pre-season tax Q&A and training sessions at employer sites, community sites, libraries, and we're going to be starting that in probably June or July. And if there's going to be any tax reform changes, the whole healthcare reform, we were asked those questions a lot by the employees. So we have seen that we're kind of going to become the educators if anything should happen. And in case that does, then we go out there and we're going to be updating people on what to expect. Another thing that we want to kind of take a look at is we saw a lot of problems with people and their withholdings. A lot of them didn't even know what a W-4 is. HR won't touch that topic whatsoever. And that's something that we can kind of train people on. Approach to outreach, we try to get started pretty early. Volunteer recruitment begins in August, and we just kind of blast out advertisements on Craigslist, Idealist, LinkedIn. We lean on our personal networks. In September, that's when we ask for the businesses to start to reserve dates and times and rooms, and then we can go and physically see them and make sure that they're going to be working for us. The first marketing materials that get shot out before the start of the new year, most of the time people don't really pay attention to those, but it gets kind of the word out, a little inkling of the message. Really, most of your signups are going to come once they all start getting their W-2s. So if you do adopt something like Sign Up Genius and you're worried because you have no signups, as soon as those go out, they're going to fill up. And then the best thing about that is if you do a second visit, say in March or in April, the first wave of people are telling their coworkers, hey, I got it done for free, here's the money I got, and here's what I'm able to do with it. And then just some more tips on communicating with the employers. So this was tried in Larimer County before WorkLife and myself got there. It didn't work out well. The businesses don't really understand IRS vital lingo, so try to keep that down. Again, also, typically when you say, here's like the things that I need, they might not necessarily reserve all the things for you, so try to come in with some backup try to get to that room early, make sure everything's there. I bring backup laptops, I bring backup internet cords, I have a backup Wi-Fi just in case, paper. A few times I've gotten there and they forgot I'm coming, so the door is locked. So again, get there early. Make sure you have a contact person that you keep in touch with over the year. And another thing is keep the language centered around why this is good for the employee. So not, here's the things that I need, here's what VITA needs, but this is the best way to serve the employees. Here's how we can effectively outreach to them. Or even when you're selling the service to them, for a lot of these frontline staff, just the savings from the filing fees is about a week's worth of pay. And that can be emergency rental assistance for someone to keep their housing. That really resonates with employers. Another thing that we like to do is, again, you kind of narrow on 1 to 3 HR reps usually that are going to kind of serve as your champion. And as Brenda had said, it's a relationship. You maintain that contact with them. Try to be sure that you're actually on the tax site when it's happening. Don't rely on just strictly volunteers, especially new volunteers. Make sure you're there, someone who understands and has been in contact with the business and also knows the volunteers and also knows VITA, because all 3 of those are interacting at the same time. And definitely arrive at least an hour early. That saved me several times. And another thing, if you can, try to share the aggregate data. That's something that employers really love to see. You know, how many people about did we save? They really also like to see filing cost savings. If you're able to gather that information, it really resonates with employers. And that's about the extent of my presentation.
Thank you so much for that. Those are some great tips. Now we're going to move on to some questions. So if you have any questions, just type them into the chat box and we'll get to them.
Stephen, there's a question for you. What does the training look like with the college students? Are they encouraged to go through Link and Learn? How do you track their progress if that is the way training is delivered? And how do you learn about the program's procedures?
The challenging part of this model is just something to kind of discuss across the country is it's hugely dependent on a staff of AmeriCorps members. They wouldn't have to be AmeriCorps members, but we've got a large team of recent college graduates that we spend 6 months out of the year recruiting from universities all over the country to come. And our training, Link and Learn is a difficult model for college students. Unless they're required to do it as part of an accounting course, I think it's slow and patronizing. It's redundant. We put together our own training. We have about an 8-hour version. We do it through PowerPoints, but we have our staff go through a lot of training preparation to do the training, and then we make it as easy as possible. Like our other panelists said, we have a lot of Saturday trainings. We break it into 2 parts, and we have it on, we'll be on a campus. We'll have a version, part A and part B, on Tuesday and Wednesday night, Thursday and Friday night, all day Saturday. We bring in pizza. To have a lot of success with college students, you really have to be able to sort of tailor it to their world. And it's helpful to come on campus. I suppose you don't have to do that, but our rate of success is much higher that way. What was the other question?
How do they learn about the program's procedure? I think you addressed that.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time recruiting. And it's most helpful to go.
How do you track their progress?
How do we track their progress? Well, we register them right when they get to tax sites. Every course that we work with that a faculty has, we give them a weekly report. And if someone doesn't show up one day at noon, we email the professor an hour later. We have them all in sort of our database scheduling software. And they're all required. Most of our partnerships with universities and faculty require 4 hours a week. Some of them require their students to do 6 hours a week, and we supervise them and make sure they're coming and doing a good job. And initially, for basic student volunteers, we pair them together at a table, which just sort of helps them through the anxiety period.
Okay, thank you. Logan, how many employer sites do you have this past season?
So this past season we had, hold on just a second, go pull that back up. We had 11 sites down in Denver, and then we had 6 in Fort Collins, Loveland area.
Okay, thank you. That's quite a few. Brenda, how would you suggest that our other organizations identify a contact to work with at a bank?
My first suggestion would be find out who the CRA representative is. That's going to be your first contact. And I know you're probably saying, but I don't know who that is. Then this is what you do. You go to your branch manager and have a talk with them and share the value of the program, the benefits that it would be to the bank, and ask them if they could connect you with the CRA representative.
Thank you, Brenda. Stephen, one more question for you. How do you maintain relationships with universities outside of the tax season, and what about outside of the school year?
Well, one of the nice things about this is we're a freestanding 501c3, and our funders know all the work we're doing. But one of the most successful ways to keep a university or a college really engaged is to make it all about them. So the newsletters that go out afterward, we try to take really beautiful pictures at the sites when their family's in there, and we help them tell stories. I know this is sort of a stretch for most organizations, but we have filmmakers on staff that film during season. But the bottom line is to make it about the university. So like in Huntsville, we partner with University of Alabama in Huntsville. And we do about 1,200 families in one room at a community center near UAH, University of Alabama, Huntsville. And everyone just thinks of it as a UAH initiative. UAH is not really, we have great faculty partners, but our staff are doing all the training and supervision, and we schedule all the appointments. But in the world of Huntsville, Alabama, it's known as a UAH initiative. And so I think it's really helpful. And Brenda was talking to this. I mean, this just sort of goes toward the helpfulness of establishing and maintaining relationships and letting people know updates and letting them know your accomplishments and keeping them updated on challenges. And we just sort of go out of our way to try to help the university tell the story well, so they can, to their own donors and their family, their supporters and their parents and their students. And we sort of help them grow the culture of this being one of the most special things the campus does. And it builds each year. And we just do everything we can to promote it as an identity for them.
That sounds really great. It's good to put the importance on the volunteers. What system do you use to schedule appointments?
You may know it's called Cheetah something. It costs we got a pretty big grant to do it. We were successfully doing 7,000 or 8,000 a year just using Google Calendar, just using this calendar thing. This new software has been a lot more helpful.
Okay.
But there are different options to sort of tailor that kind of scheduling software too.
That's true. So you mentioned UAH is an offsite space. Is that the case for all of your VITA sites, or do you do some on-campus sites?
That's one of the challenges of most VITA work that colleges around the country are doing, because most of them sort of do it on campus, and you sort of know if you're on the kind of a campus where lower income working families from the region feel comfortable coming on. Most universities do not meet that definition, and it's not a helpful location for families to come on to. We have some partnerships with two-year colleges, junior colleges, community colleges, and they're great locations, and families, their student body qualify for the earned income tax credit, and we use their facilities for the tax sites. Most of our tax sites are relatively close to the universities, but in a neighborhood that's more helpful at a site that we work at a lot in libraries, a lot in community centers. So it's usually off campus. We try to be in a neighborhood where everyone around us qualifies and is most convenient and helpful.
That makes sense. It's something to consider. So this is for all of you. Do you establish a memorandum of understanding with partners?
We do here in Kent County. We have one for the site host as well as the coordinators.
Okay, what does that look like?
It indicates that they're in this partnership, in this relationship, that they will be open, they will provide internet, that, the traditional things that would be in a VITA, well, I shouldn't say that, in a VITA memorandum of understanding. We just want everyone to commit to what they say they're going to do. If you're a coordinator, we want you to be there. We want to make sure that you're certified to advance, that you're doing quality reviews, that your volunteers, you're scheduling your volunteers, you're checking the 211 system. We make our appointments through the United Way 211 system, and we want to make sure that you check that. And so that's what it looks like for us.
Okay, thank you. So you found it to be valuable to the partnership to have an MOU?
I have, because then everyone knows what the expectations are.
Perfect, thank you. So that's the last question. I want to thank our presenters for taking the time to talk to us, and thank you everyone else for participating. And now we'll hear from Jenny.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. This is Jenny again. Just as a reminder, we will send out the recording, slides, and any additional resources via email within a week. After the training is over, you will receive a 2-question survey asking how the training was. Please complete the survey to let us know how else we can support you. If you have suggestions for any other trainings you'd be interested in seeing or anything else you'd be interested in learning about, you can also tell us in the survey. Here are just a few of the ways that you can find us. Our website and blog are great resources for different outreach strategies and also partner spotlights. You can also like us on Facebook, where we post all of our new updates. If you have any other questions or need assistance, you can also email us at eitcoutreach@cbpp.org. The email is listed above. We love hearing from you, so please shoot us any questions or suggestions you have for us. All right, that's it for us today. Thank you all so much again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.